good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, this show is important because we're talking about living your true life, living your best life. And in order to live our true life and our best life, we want to feel good doing it. We want to feel good. We want to be able to be mindful in our actions and our deeds. But one of the biggest things is we want to live this life and we want to feel good. We want to get the best out of it, and we want to do the best we can to really preserve our health. And if any of you out there have suffered with chronic pain, you know how hard it is and how difficult it is to really focus on day-to-day life, how difficult it can be to be mindful, and how overwhelming certain things can become because it's tough, it's hard, and when you're hurting and we're in pain, it seems that life gets even tougher. And I've experienced pain in my life, and I think it's something that we all need to really discuss and figure out what the right things are to do. But better yet, we need to come up with solution. And so, you know, this show is all about solution and finding those experts who can really talk to the subject at hand, because we can talk about things, we can come up with generalizations, but all in all, we're looking for significant solutions that can change our life forever. Joining us in studio today, Dr. Liza Leal, Dr. Liza with a Z. She's an amazing physician who has crafted an entire career around helping her patients deal with chronic pain, how to help them overcome that chronic pain, and how to move forward in their life. And the really neat thing about Dr. Liza is that she actually has gone through it herself. And she's going to tell the story today because she's actually gone through it, she's gotten out of it, and she's figured out how to do it, and she's helping her clients do it. Dr. Liza, thank you so much for coming on Live Your True Life Perspectives.
Ashley, thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I'm just amazed by your story. I'm amazed by your true life story and how you were able to take a situation that for most people, and I'm sure for yourself, was extremely devastating, and turn that into a success story where we're actually helping other people.
I believe in thriving, not surviving. So it's an honor to be able to inspire, and that's what I hope to do today, is to inspire others to take action.
So let me ask you, Dr. Liza, how many people do you think, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of folks in society today that are dealing with chronic pain. I'm sure you see clients every single day. Is there a large percentage of our population that's dealing with it?
There is. You have to think about it. In the statistics, it shows that over 100 million Americans suffer in some sort of chronic pain. And chronic pain is defined as living in pain greater than 3 months. So whether that's intermittent, constant, chronic pain, that is, chronic pain is something that has been going on for more than 12 weeks.
Okay, so chronic pain more than 12 weeks. So anybody that's out there listening right now to the show, if this is making sense and this is going on in your life, you really want to take note. Also, if you have a family member or a friend, you know, tell them about the show because this is really going to help them. Okay, so that's the timeline. And so, you know, tell me more about what you've learned from that situation. Does it get better or get worse? Do a lot of people not do anything with it or really not know the right ways of handling it?
Well, I always share with everyone. I share a little bit about my own story. And my own story is that when I was 23 years old, I was a third-year medical student, and I was getting to a place where I was not able to walk very well. And within 6 months, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and was in a wheelchair for the next 4 years. So that was quite devastating and very life-changing. And I knew I had to do something different. And doing something different throughout residency and really trying to not only survive residency but learn to thrive, my colleague had asked me, you know, you've got a great story. Why don't you write a book? And that's what I did, is that I wrote a book to help inspire people by writing a vignette of characters to help people live well with chronic pain.
That's awesome. And so the book is Live Well with Chronic Pain, a guide to taking the first steps.
That is correct.
And it's a great book. I've actually started reading it myself, and I should be able to finish it in probably the next day or two. And I like how you walk through the book, and it's an easy-to-read book, and it really kind of tells your story and explains also, you know, what you learned, but how you got there.
Exactly. A lot of people, It's the poor me. The doctor doesn't understand. And a lot of patients that come to me, they may have seen 7, 8, or even more physicians before they come into our office. And we look at it from a very holistic approach. We always share that we're going to take care of you from head to toe, which means that we're not going to only take care of the physical needs, we're going to take care of the emotional, the social, as well as the spiritual needs, because we're here to take care of the whole body.
And that's the key, is that a lot of times we look at things, we're looking at one side of something. We're not taking the whole person, the whole patient into consideration. And that's where we lose out, is that we're not looking at everything. And I think that a lot of times some medicine and some folks can see things more compartmentalized. And I think you see the bigger picture.
Well, the whole idea is to see some of the trees throughout the forest, and it's not just one laboratory that we're looking at. We've got to look at the combination of your hormones, the chemistry, your nutrition, everything that you're doing to hopefully choose to live well, which is what I always share with patients is the first foundation, is make a choice to live well, and I'm here to partner with you. And that's what we're doing today, is to help people make some small changes and have some big rewards in the future.
So let me ask you, first off, I'd like to, if you don't mind telling a little bit more about your story, because then I want to ask a little bit about some of the smaller changes that people can make. But how bad did it get? So there you were in the wheelchair. You are, crippled with rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, I'm sure there were some thoughts going through your head that you were really overwhelmed, stressed out. But did you always feel that you could take care of this, or that was your mission to be successfully to overcome this?
I think that everyone has those moments of doubts when you have something that is considered a crisis. And during that time, I lost a marriage. I thought that I was going to be married to this person for the rest of my life, and God had a different purpose for me. And I thought that, by eating chocolate cake every night, sorry about that, guys. I know everybody heard a click. And I knew that people that, I was at that place where I was eating chocolate cake. I was eating a lot of things that I shouldn't eat. So going from a little person at 5'3", probably 120 pounds at that time, I quickly gained weight. And as you all know, gaining weight doesn't help your health condition. And it wasn't until I had met a physician who actually happened to be a dentist who helped to change my life. And what he said was, you're the one in that chair, and if you want to make a difference, you have to make a choice. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the first chapter of Choose to Live Well. I didn't realize going through that diagnosis, and at the very beginning, I wasn't making a choice to change. I was making a choice to sulk. And by sulking, I was making some poor choices, which made my health go into high blood pressure, which I was on another medication. So by the end of it, I was on 13 medications within that 6-month period.
Wow, 13 medications. And I know some of y'all listening to the show right now live on USA Radio Networks, you're saying, you know what, I am on a few medications, or I'm on more medications than I want to be. And that's what's interesting. So there you are, you're on 13 medications. What was that turning point? So obviously y'all had that conversation and that really connected you, but was it the fact that you said, you know what, I'm going to create this, I'm going to find this willpower within myself? Was that it?
It goes back to the spirituality of Ephesians 3:20, is that if God gives you that dream and that dream is in your heart, God promises more than you can imagine. I really took that in, read it every day, and he brought the right people into my life at that time that helped me to make the changes that I needed. And in addition, not only make myself make those changes, but it changed my future to where I would specialize in chronic pain, addiction, functional medicine, integrative, regenerative medicine to help bring new opportunities, new choices so that other people could have hope and be inspired by the story.
And inspiration is key. It's motivation, and you're so right. If we're inspired to be better than we were yesterday, if we're inspired, and I think a lot of it is motivation and drive and seeing the fact that there's a greater purpose there.
Absolutely. And as I share with every patient, motivation gets you started. Determination keeps you to the end point of your goal.
That's so true. And I think also that willpower and desire to see it through, at least to try, because one thing that I don't ever want to deal with, and I talk about this with clients and on the radio, many of you have heard it, the last thing you want to deal with is regret. regret is something you cannot change. And I think if you can exhaust all opportunities, no matter if in this world it's considered that you fail, are you really failing, or are you actually doing things, trying new things, and actually overcoming that? Because I think regret only happens when we don't try.
And the key is, I always share with patients when they say, hey, doc, I'm really trying. I say, trying is lying. We might have heard that when we were little and we were teenagers. The key is we can fail forward and we can learn something from that. The light bulb didn't happen overnight. There was many, many tries before Benjamin Franklin was successful at that. So the key is to keep learning, keep moving forward so that you can make those plans, take the action, and make a difference.
And I think a lot of times, too, we have to be able to say, even if we don't feel like we can do it ourselves, even if we question our ability, and I know we've heard this before, but fake it till you make it. You just got to go with it. You got to do it, because I've realized that no one can do any more than I can do, but it took a while to find that within myself. And so if you're in the situation right now and you're kind of worried and you're overwhelmed, taking that chance on yourself and moving forward is so powerful, because there you are, Dr. Liza, you're over there eating cake and doing all this stuff, and we all know how much nutrition is important with our health and chronic pain, but also the weight. And that was the wake-up call, right? That was the time when you said, I got to make a change.
Absolutely. I knew I had to do what I call a little brain surgery. I had to get rid of the negative thinking and replace that with positive inspiration. And it was sticky notes all over the place, all over the condo. Back then I'm in school, all over the mirrors, and just learning to inspire, which, yes, you're faking it till you make it. However, you finally get to a place where you're instilled by those thoughts and that meditation come to life, and they breathe life into you. And now you are a person that is not pretending you have joy. You own the joy.
That's powerful. And yes, I know that a lot of folks, we eat for various reasons, whether we're depressed, whether we're overwhelmed, whether we're stressed out. There's a lot of things that go with that, and identifying why you feel that way. There are thoughts in your heads that are creating that emotion, that are creating you to feel that way. And a lot of times we feel, no, I just feel this way. I don't know why I'm feeling this, but it goes back to the thoughts in our head that directly reflect how we act and how we treat ourselves.
Yes, and the key with not with just medications, but with nutrition, is that nutrition can replace medications. Back then I was on 13 medications, and today I'm on no medications. I only eat right, and I take supplementations, and the whole idea is to try and teach others we can make really pure, clean energy by just eating right and supplementing correctly.
That is so true. And I think it's so interesting. When we return, Dr. Liza is going to help us walk through this, really talk about the nutrition and understand, the proper guidelines of how to create this living well and how to overcome this chronic pain. And she's going to be on the show for many weeks, so it's going to be a really great interaction. You're going to learn a lot. Don't forget to check out reggieharvey.net, reggieharvey.net. He wrote the book Anatomy of a Patient. He's awaiting a transplant right now, and his words of wisdom and walking through that is so powerful. And so check out the book. Also check him out on Facebook as well. Also, don't forget to check out Art for Your Cause, artforyourcause.com, where the artist and the charity are connected, and it's a win-win situation. Okay, live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. So guess what? We'll be back this time in two shades.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we're talking about chronic pain, actually how to overcome chronic pain, because this is a big deal. Many of us are living with it day-to-day life. It really just takes out your will to live to some degree, because it's hard, because it's overwhelming, because you're having to do the same things you're doing, but dealing with that pain. And so joining us in studio, Dr. Liza Leal, Dr. Liza with a Z. Dr. Liza, so tell me a little bit more about inflammation and what that's all about, because I think some folks might need a little more information. Some of us know about it, but really what that matters as far as nutrition and overcoming that chronic pain.
Great question, because inflammation is a chemical reaction that occurs when we're not eating correctly, or maybe we are stressed and we're causing a hormone to increase. And inflammation, you have to think of this as a bridge that stays open and you are not closing it. So chronic pain is like a bridge that's staying open and you're unable to close it. Now, if we can slowly make that bridge close or narrow that bridge, we would decrease the inflammation and we would decrease pain and chronic pain. Remember that most diseases and conditions are caused by inflammations. To get scientific about it, it's the cytokines, ligands, different COX-2s and 1s that are going off, and if we can block it, we can block the result of pain, which can also decrease our aging process. And when we decrease our aging process, we can have fun at 50, 60, 70, 80, and our minds can be alert. And that's the part that excites me about nutrition, because we can take a good percentage of our pain and our disease process and the ability for anti-aging by just controlling our nutrition, which is something that I learned very early in life because I was in a wheelchair.
And that's powerful. And I know there's a lot of you folks out there, I mean, especially women. I know it's all about anti-aging. We think about just our skin and our face, but really important is that nutrition. And you can tell on your skin, and you can tell on your face what you're eating. I mean, because when we're eating the right things and we're eating the right nutrition, we feel good, we look good, we don't have the red or the blotchy. We've also lost weight, and I think nutrition is so important. So how did you figure out the proper nutrition, Dr. Liza? How did you figure that out and the direction that you needed to go?
Well, the first thing was I had to decrease the carbs. And a lot of people know about the anti-inflammatory diet. Pretty easy. No smoking, no drinking. Well, those are pretty easy. Then it goes into no sugar, no carbs, and no dairy. However, sugars and carbs, especially for some of us who are in our 50s, carbs are a craving. So how do we get rid of the craving? And that's where exogenous ketones entered into the marketplace and have really changed a lot of dietary habits. I know that for my patients, I help them with exogenous ketones, and I actually recommend MCM Nutrition, which is mcmnutrition.com, because it helps the body when we are fueling our body with ketones. We're able to enter into our Krebs cycle, and our Krebs cycle is what releases energy from our body. So not only are we having more energy, we're also burning the fat that we have, and we're decreasing our carb craving and our sugar craving, and our hormones are more balanced. To me, that's a win-win, because on all of that, our pain is decreasing 20 or 30% by just one small choice that you're doing.
This is awesome. We're going to talk more about this, so stay tuned. Stay on this channel, because right now we're going to be talking about ketones. We're going to be understanding. I'm going to learn a lot more about this too, because I have a tendency of eating carbs and sugars, and I'm notorious for it. I mean, I have a Whole Foods down the street from my office, and I go down there, and I don't know about y'all that are listening, but I'll get a bag of that candy, and I'll just eat on it all day long, and I don't feel good. So we're going to be talking about what ketones are. We're going to understand how they can work in our life, because I'm really interested. You might be really interested in this as well, and let's see how we can overcome some of that carb craving, some of that sugar craving that doesn't make us feel good, kind of beats us down, and really makes us feel like we have no energy. So stay tuned. Don't forget to check out artforyourcause.com, artforyourcause.com, and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about chronic pain, how to overcome chronic pain with the proper nutrition, and how to do that, because many of you out there, just like me, I love the carbs. You go to the restaurant and they have the thing of bread and the butter, and you get kind of sucked into that reality. You don't feel good after. Or you go over to the store, you go to the candy store, get chocolate, candy, ice cream, and none of that makes us feel good. And many of us are craving it, and we want it, and it's so hard to get rid of it because it's almost like an addiction. Dr. Liza, you were saying right before the break about how it's so important to cut those carbs out and that sugar out, and how these ketones can really help you. Tell me more about ketones, because I want to learn more about this.
Absolutely. So, one of the things we talked about was that sugar reduces inflammation. And in a ketogenic diet, or macro diet is also another way of calling that, is that we have two sources of powering our mitochondria. And for everyone out there, the mitochondria is your powerhouse in your body, in your little tiny cell that every one of your cells has, that produces energy so that you can feel great. The difference between ketones and glucose, very important. They both produce ATP. Glucose, going into that mitochondrial powerhouse, takes 11 steps to do that. Ketones take 2 to 3 steps to produce the same amount of energy. And by doing that, it starts to harness our fat fuel and burn our fat. Here's a secondary great benefit of it, is that it causes mental clarity and sharpness. Now, who doesn't need more of that?
I do. I mean, for any of y'all working out there all the time when you're working so hard, isn't it nice to have that? It's almost like being nimble mentally. And that brain fog, do you think that it can really help with the brain fog too? Because I know many of us are experiencing that. I've experienced that brain fog, and it can be a little scary, but also it can kind of wear on you.
Oh, I always share with patients, because they'll come in and say, Doc, I've been really foggy. Is it my hormones? Is it my diet? What is it going on? And for a lot of women who are out there in perimenopause or menopause, they may suffer from a little bit more brain fogginess. And if we can get that mental clarity by doing it naturally, you're not only going to have the mental clarity and the sharpness, but you're going to also have some reduced of the hormone side effects that are going to be working for you instead of against you. In other words, you're going to be able to sleep the whole night without having to wake up with hot flashes. That's good for you and your partner.
So let me ask you, with the ketones, how do you take them? I mean, do you take them in the morning? Do you take them at night? I mean, how do you work? I'm assuming in the morning to get the most energy. And then is there a certain limit on how much you can take and how you take it? And I mean, where do you start?
Excellent question, because a lot of people are very confused on how do you take exogenous ketones and when to do that. I personally take mine in the morning. I use 2 scoops. I actually put mine with iced tea. I've never been a coffee drinker. I've always been an iced tea or hot tea. So I will mix lemon, peach, or orange into my iced tea, which, most of us would add those types of fruits anyway into our iced tea. Mix that up, stir it up, and I drink 30 ounces down through the tube of the throat. And about 3 o'clock, I'll have one more that is going to be decaf, because I am actually very sensitive to caffeine, so I actually take the decaf in the afternoons. And the key is to get enough of the exogenous ketones that will sufficiently, when you go home, you're not craving the carbs and you're not craving the sugar. So when I'm going home, I'm actually looking forward to planning the meal for the family, and I'm not having to look for something like spaghetti or rice or pasta so that I can get a quick fix. I'm actually looking to have something that's baked, fish, all of these good whole foods, nuts, avocados, eggs, all the good stuff.
So, it's interesting you brought that up, because I've been working long hours for a while, and I think many people listening to this show for a long time can attest to that, and I know they have been too, and they can feel my pain. But, it's interesting how when I have a late night at work, I have that tendency of grazing on sugar. And it was funny. I wasn't really catching myself doing that, or I would have to go to an event or in a dinner, and I'd catch myself, getting some chocolate or grabbing some candy or getting a fruity drink or something like that. And I didn't realize that I guess I just didn't have any energy. Is that what it is, that I'm trying to energize myself? Is that why I'm going for it, or is it something else?
It's actually 2 to 3-fold. One is that you've had a long day and you're stressed, so your adrenal glands are giving cortisol. Cortisol is just telling you, hey, have some carbs and have some sugar. But if you do that, your other hormone, estrogen, also starts to decrease, which gives you a hot flash. Who wants that? So how do we turn all of those down so that our body can have the mental clarity, the cognitive speed, and the focus that we need to have that meeting late at night? Or it might be going home and playing with the kids or getting them out to the soccer practice or baseball or volleyball. It's having the focus, because if we're driving our children or our grandchildren, we want to be safe and aware. And when we're tired, which carbs can cause a lot of tired and exhaustion feelings, is that your awareness decreases. So this is just a good thing for people to consider if they are feeling tired. Maybe they're studying late at night and they're working and going to school. Why would we not want to eat well and have the focus and clarity without medications?
So with the ketones, when you're taking it, and you got to wean off the sugar and the carbs, right? I mean, do you have kind of like that? People talk about that when you the carb coma, like when you wean off of it. Are you going to feel that way, or are you not going to have to go through that?
So that's what exogenous ketones can help prevent for you. So people that want to get into ketosis, a lot of people will say, gosh, doc, I'm still at 50 grams or 100 grams of carbs. And a lot of my patients will use FitPal or Carb Manager to monitor where they are. And I'm not saying do this every single day, but you can. It helps you to understand the foods that you're eating and what your carb intake is. And if you are having a carb load, take the exogenous ketones so that you can help burn them faster. If you've been on a low-carb diet, you still want your body to learn to burn the fuel of the fat and not the muscle. So that's another reason to take the exogenous ketones. The third reason to take the exogenous ketones is that it's going to help prevent your carb craving later or your sugar craving later, because we don't want to be emotionally eating and binging.
See, that's the key, is that you eat, and I guess you're right, because your adrenals are worn out. And tell our listeners a little bit more about what your adrenal glands do, just so they kind of get an idea of that as well.
So your adrenal glands are your fight or flight, is what people learn about. So in other words, if you are coming up to an intersection and you suddenly stop and a car's going by, your adrenaline is just going to have a flood, and you kind of get that anxiety that's going on because you just missed that car that was taking off when it shouldn't have been. That would be a fight or flight type of feeling. So by the adrenal glands give that off, and when they do that, they can do a good thing by helping the body do what it needs to do, fight or flight, or they can stay on, and when they stay on, that's when they start pulling up the desire and the need for carbohydrates to stay fueled so that it stays on. And that's not what we want.
And that in turn ages us, creates that chronic pain, creates those issues where we start kind of feeling brittle or kind of beaten down, and it starts showing, right? So it starts aging us from the inside out.
From the inside out, and that's when you get tired of being tired.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are there right now. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners right now. They're like, I am tired of being tired. I'm at that place. I'm at that feeling in my life. And if that's the case, you want to keep listening, because we have so much to go over. And Dr. Liza is going to be in studio next week as well, and the following week, discussing this stuff to really enable us to have the information we need to be powerful and to make those life changes that we need to. And joining us right now on Live Your True Life Perspectives is our resident historian, Dan Nelson. Dan does amazing research to not only uncover, but to understand and to basically highlight family trees, their ancestry, from which they came, and all that information. As well as in the process, he stumbles upon and finds and digs into some really amazing historical stories that really need to be told. And he's going to share one with us today that I think is very interesting and definitely life-changing for many of us. And this one is actually set, Dan, right in 1923, where a woman actually wants to wear makeup so bad that she's willing to go to court over it.
Yeah, sort of strange. This was a high school student, so a pretty brave thing for a high school gal to do in 1923. Her name was Pearl Pugsley, and she was living in Noble, Arkansas, and she went up against the school board because she said I should be able to wear makeup to school to make myself more attractive. And the board told her no, she needs to go wash off her artificial complexion. And then they fell back on a rule that the school board had developed that said you can't have face powder, short skirts, peekaboo waists, and they have those rules because they said they found that it tended to distract the attention of especially the boys in school.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, you don't want the boys to be distracted. So she believed in the women's right to use anything on their faces that they wanted to make themselves more attractive. And so she went to the school board and said, I should be able to bring my powder puff with her. And that she said, I think boys and girls should be able to wear makeup as long as, there's no injury. Why should anybody care? So her case got appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court, which isn't, the United States Supreme Court, but it's a pretty big deal when you're living in rural Arkansas. And in the meantime, the board expelled Miss Pugsley, so she's no longer in school. I guess she sits at home with her makeup. So then about the time this was really rising and turning into a bigger deal, they collapsed the high school down to 2 years instead of 3 years. And so she was now too old for high school, so it stopped being a school board problem and just became an issue for the Supreme Court to solve. But at the time in Arkansas, she was referred to as the Joan of Arc of makeup and lipstick, and the lipstick wars, they called it. So today, if she was doing this, she'd probably be signed on by Revlon or somebody to go endorse their cosmetics. So she had to change schools, and that took her out of sort of the middle of the confrontation. But when she was talked to about it, she said that she felt that her toes were being trampled on, and the Irish blood in her began to boil, and that she was going to fight this case as far as she could fight it. And so it was really sort of as much about women's rights at that time. If you think the 1920s, there was progress, but not a lot of progress. And so she felt she was pushing it for that reason. And so her father on his deathbed said to her that, I want you to carry this case to the court. So he was supportive of it. So way to go, Mr. Pugsley. But she received a half a ton of letters, is how it was described, of admirers and people that wanted her to continue fighting the good fight. This started about the middle of the school year. Well, unfortunately, love found her, and by the end of the school year, she was married to Armit Greer and abandoned her fight. So on the other side, you could sort of look at it as, well, what if Pearl and others hadn't prevailed? As the father of two daughters, maybe we wouldn't have had 2 bathrooms full of $14,000 worth of cosmetics so that they could make it through high school as attractive as possible.
That's hilarious, Dan. That's interesting how you uncover some of these awesome stories and historical reference as well when you're doing other people's family history and family genealogy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I got a lot of stories, so happy to share them with your listeners.
I know we got some really incredible names too, like Lincoln and Bush, and the list goes on, I'm sure.
Yep, it's a long list, and a lot of the good stories do tie into people in history whose names we'll all recognize.
Awesome. Well, Dan, I look forward to having you back in studio. And where can people get more information about you and your work?
Yeah, just go to Dancestory Genealogy. So that's ancestors with a D in front, genealogy.com. And you can find helpful hints in there, and you can see the video testimonials from our happy clients. You can go to our YouTube channel, Dancestory Genealogy, and there's videos on there you can watch as well.
Awesome, Dan. Well, I'll see you back in studio.
All right. Thanks.
Dan is a wealth of knowledge. I love his information, and these stories are so amazing because it crafts our history, and I love history, and I love learning about things that I had no idea actually happened. So amazing story, more amazing stories to come. Dan will be on the show, and I like to hear his stories because history is fun and it's exciting, and we learn about stuff. Dr. Liza is a wealth of knowledge, and the neat thing about her that I really like is the fact that she has been there. She literally was in a wheelchair. She had full-on rheumatoid arthritis, and she went through a lot of pain and suffering, and through that pain and suffering, she learned what she needed to do, and that's so key. And with Reggie Harvey, he's going through that process and he's learning so much. And what he learned, he put out there as a wealth of knowledge as well, an anatomy of a patient. And, it's interesting with Dr. Liza, with a Z, her latest book, Live Well with Chronic Pain, is so powerful. So stay tuned. We'll be talking more with Dr. Liza and Live Your True Life Perspectives. We'll be back this time. I'll be back this time in Touche.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we've been talking about chronic pain, about healthcare, about nutrition, and about how we can manage that desire for our carbs and that desire for sugar that just gets in the way of our health, and how we can actually do that with ketones. And joining us here in studio, Dr. Liza with a Z. So, tell me more about why we should take these ketones, because, I'm looking at these products from MCM, and they look really amazing. They taste great. Is that going to really help over a long period of time to just make you more fit, more healthy, and have more energy? And why do we take them?
So using exogenous ketones can help the body in many different ways. One we talked about a little bit earlier is reducing inflammation, because we're not having the intake of carbs and sugars. It's decreasing that carb craving. By having that fat loss using exogenous ketones, it's going to help teach your body to adapt to using the ketones as an energy source. And remember, I had shared earlier is that when we're burning glucose to make energy, we're going through about 11 different steps. And if we're burning ketones from our fat stores, it only takes 2 or 3 steps. So fewer steps makes the body more efficient. And for those of us who are weekend warriors, or maybe you're a professional athlete, the physical performance. By taking exogenous ketones before your workout, it's going to improve your energy level, and it's also going to decrease the need for your oxygen, so your workout can actually intensify. So I like to ride my bicycle, and I like that feeling of the go. Now, I remember at a time when I was in a wheelchair and I was going through physical therapy where I only rode for 2 minutes. 2 minutes was a max, and then I would ride for 2 minutes 3 times in that day, and I would be exhausted. Now I can't wait to get on the bicycle and go out there with my grandchildren. Another reason for exogenous ketones that we also briefly talked about was the mental function. Ketones are a steady, clean source of energy for your brain cells, because the ketones can cross the blood-brain barrier, just like glucose. And you notice the improved cognitive speed, memory, and focus. For those of you who might like to play instruments, that's one of the things that I noticed, a quick change of playing the piano and taking a look at different segments, and all of a sudden that mind at the end of the day, I'm like, that different interpretation just all of a sudden made sense. And the last part is I'm in my 50s, so longevity is important, and I think it's important to many of the patients that I visit with on a daily basis. Ketones can help with the adaptation of your body to decrease the inflammation so that we have more anti-aging. Anti-aging is decreased inflammation, so that we can experience a great quality of life. I mean, how many of us really want a knee replacement? And if we could avoid producing more inflammation that causes arthritis, wouldn't we want to do that? That's just a question to place out there, that if we can make a small change and have a great reward of being able to play with our children and our grandchildren, why would you not want to do that? I know I want to do it, and I hope some of you are with me.
I think that's powerful, and I think that one of the neatest things is that we have the ability to make changes. And I think some of us feel like, maybe we've gone too far, and this actually shows you that we can take our life back in our own hands, take our health back in our own hands, and really start with something as simple as basically, drinking a powder type situation in the morning that can really help us. Now, how long does it normally take to see a big change that you've seen?
Well, for me, the biggest change and the quickest change was that I noticed that when I got home, I didn't have any carb cravings. and that within 2 weeks, the scale that was plateauing was finally changing. Now, you have to remember, I was in a wheelchair. I was 204 pounds. I'm now holding at 133 as of this morning. And, I want to get to a little bit lower because all of us have a little bit more to go so that I can be better, and I want to be better every day so that I can have the health to help my patients and hopefully inspire them to be able to be there for their families and loved ones.
And that's powerful. Now, Dr. Liza is going to be joining us next week. We're going to be talking about health. We're going to be talking about diet. We're going to talk about ketos. We're going to talk about how to take it, what to take, supplemental. And it's going to be a really powerful show so that you can get in there and really not only educate yourself, but really learn a lot about what you can do and empower yourself. Dr. Liza, can't wait to see you next week.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, we have a great show for you next week, so stay tuned. And you know what? It's all about empowerment. It's about living our true life. It's about doing what we need to do to really empower ourselves to feel good and to do good, but to really feel good in our life and do the best we can every moment to be better than we were yesterday. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week and Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. We'll be back this time. You know it. Be back this time in 3 shakes.